Hello again, everyone. I'm Don Wolf, and I love jazz, and I'm here today with one of the great young rising stars in jazz, Stephanie Trick. Stephanie, welcome to I Love Jazz.
Thank you, Don.
Stephanie, I had to go all the way to Clearwater, Florida to find you. How is that?
Well, I was invited to go to that festival by the French stride pianist Louis Mazetier. And he recommended that I go because a lot of wonderful jazz pianists were performing down there in January, like Dick Hyman, Rossano Sportiello, Bernd Latsky, Mike Lipskin. So it was a festival I couldn't miss.
Some of the finest piano players in the world, and you got invited to play the piano while there and showed them all that you are a rising star in stride piano.
Oh, thank you, Don.
That was an exciting event for you, and it also opened many doors, didn't it?
It did, yes.
Tell us, how did it all start?
I started playing the piano when I was 5, and the way that happened was I was with my family in a hotel here in St. Louis, and we saw a pianist playing background music in the lobby. So I went up to her and asked if she gave lessons, and I was completely captivated by the playing, and she became my teacher for the next 13 years. And my parents never pushed me to play music. It always came from me, and I always made myself practice, and it was always something that I wanted to do from my heart. And when I was a junior in high school, she gave me the music for the Carolina Shout. And I entered into a ragtime competition sponsored by the Friends of Scott Joplin. And I won it that year. And the next year I also won it. And in 2006, I was invited to perform at the West Coast Ragtime Festival in Sacramento, California. This is the biggest ragtime festival in the world, and I had a chance to play some of the pieces I was working on, and also hear stride piano played live, and that was a life-changing experience for me.
And prior to that, what was your main interest in music?
I had studied a lot of classical before I started getting into ragtime and stride.
It's so unusual that a young woman would find an interest in this particular kind of music, because this is the music of our forefathers, years gone by, James P. Johnson and Fats Waller and Art Tatum and even Ralph Sutton. How did you find a place in that field that made you want to pursue that as a career?
I think the main thing was being able to see it performed live, because there's nothing so spectacular and moving for me than to see stride piano, because it's such a virtuosic, orchestral, and at the same time very joyous type of music, very joyful.
Your classical background, I'm sure, helped you get to where you are, but what difference did you find in studying classical music and then finding ragtime and stride piano?
I think that, first of all, the classical training gave me the technique needed to play this demanding style of music, but there's nothing that can substitute for listening a great deal to all the recordings of the great piano masters like James P. Johnson and Fats Waller. And by listening, you can imbibe the feel and the swing of this music.
And so when you found the fact that you were going to play Carolina Shout, what light bulb went off in your head that made you fall in love with this music?
I think just the challenge of it made it fun for me, and then just how the stride pianists that I saw were having so much fun when they were playing together. I knew that that was what I wanted to learn more about and play myself.
Now tell us, what have you done since you've fallen in love with this music?
I have continued going to the West Coast Ragtime Festival since 2006 every year, and I have given house concerts, private concerts, and attended more festivals since then.
I can't help but notice when you play that piano how much fun you're having. Do you realize you're having fun while you're doing this?
Oh, yes, yes. And hopefully it carries on to the audience and that the audience can feel it, because that's one of the things that I would love to do in my life, is to make other people happy.
The thing about this music, when you listen to Fats Waller and other role models that you must have, is that it is a happy music. And I know that must have played some part in your finding a special place for this kind of music in your career.
Mm-hmm. I also like this music because it's uniquely American, and it's something that a lot of people haven't heard of before. A lot of people don't even know what stride piano is, and when they hear it, the reaction is always the same. They start tapping their foot, or they start smiling, or they even want to dance. And when I see that that's how people respond to it, I know that that's what I want to keep doing.
You know, it's interesting that you believe that a lot of people don't know about this music, and you're probably very correct in your age group.
That's right.
In my age group, we know about this music and we have loved it for years, and yet there's no one here now playing this kind of music like you. So tell me, your peers who you go with, you study with, you play with, how do they react to the fact that you're playing this music that was so popular in the 30s and 40s, and their interest in music may be way off in a whole different genre?
I think they're always a little surprised to see that I'm interested in such old music, and but they're always excited to hear it, and sometimes it's the first time for them to hear stride music, stride piano.
So you're helping them find their way back to America's only original art form, music.
Yes.
And ragtime music has such a special place here in the Midwest, particularly in St. Louis and in Missouri. I'm
Yes.
sure you're aware of the history. Tell us the differences for you in playing ragtime music and stride piano music.
Well, Don, that's a really good question, because stride piano did develop from ragtime. Ragtime was more of a conservative style of music that developed in the Midwest around the turn of the century. And then 20 years later in Harlem, pianists started playing what became known as stride piano, which describes the movement of the left hand as it strides rapidly over the keys to hit the lower bass notes. And some of the differences between ragtime and stride is that stride is a lot faster and virtuosic, but it's not necessarily always played fast. It is also improvised music. You can play things spontaneously, whereas in ragtime, it's mainly read from sheet music. Another difference is that stride pianists create interesting bass lines with their left hand instead of just going between the root and the fifth. I don't know if that's too technical.
It's all right. That's all right.